part 3 of this presentation. I would like to address issues in speaking assessment. On slide number 8 of our slides, I have addressed 2 issues, first being large classes, second being personality, that can be or can turn out to be issues for speaking assessment. Large classes. Sometimes we will face situations where we will have more than 20 students, more than 30 students, and sometimes even more than 40 students in one classroom. This can be an overwhelming number for English teachers, especially when it comes to assessment. Of course, there are other factors that are not as pleasant when you have large classes. For example, you cannot almost not see the individual. You cannot foster the individual unless you are very specific, you have very good methods for doing it. But usually it is way more complicated than having a smaller class. A solution could be to assess more than one student at a time, or to evaluate the students during class time when interacting in communication with their peers. So I would say role play is a good method, a good technique to do this, to evaluate a few students at once. Then of course you have to have a very specific rating scale that you can complete while students are presenting. A second one is personality. All of us, we have different personalities, even as teachers. We are not all outgoing personalities. There are some introvert teachers as well, even though there are not many in this field probably. The teacher has to be careful that outgoing personalities will not necessarily score higher than introvert personalities, because it is way easier for us to see those students that are always talking, that are always wanting to participate everywhere. It's way easier to assess those and to think that they're better than the introverts, because they're not talking as much. But it is important to pay attention that this won't happen to us, because if you grade students based upon their performance and not upon their personality, this should not be a problem. You just have to be careful as a teacher to assess students according to their performance and not personality. Okay. Slide number 9 shows different types of assessment that I want to address now. First of them being feedback. Useful feedback is concrete and descriptive, and it relates examinee performances to goals or descriptions of good performance. This is a citation from Luoma. And meaning giving feedback is about telling the students in detail what they did well and what they might do better. Feedback fills in the gap between assessment and teaching. This means there's always, it says here, feedback fills in the gap between assessment and teaching. There has to be a bridge between those two, or else the course will not be very insightful and not very, very true. Grading checklists can be of great help here because they provide detailed information about acquired tasks and skills. So if you're just talking to someone without having a checklist or a score in front of you, it will be less helpful. So you can provide a way better and true feedback if you have some sort of help as a teacher. The second point is peer evaluation. Peer evaluation is a matter of training and of being taught how to evaluate. So before you can allow your class to evaluate their peers, you have to teach them and you have to instruct them how to do it properly, how to do it objectively, because it can be misused very easily. It is made easier to use rating scales or guiding questions prepared and provided by the teacher. Like I already said, it is also useful for feedback, of course, but then if you have inexperienced students that you want to have evaluating their peers, it is helpful to have rating scales for them too. It's more like a supplement to the teacher's assessment. It cannot stand alone because it might be too subjectively. Luoma suggests developing the assessment criteria together with the students. So the students will be finding themselves understanding the rating scale better and identifying themselves better with expectations if they have helped developing this. Our third point is pair and group tasks. These are tasks where peers interact and that bring about an authentic communication situation that a teacher can assess. So this would be, and again, role play situation. This type of task can be supplemented by observations, self-reflection, and score analysis. Self-reflection, I just want to mention here that this needs to be practiced too, because most students will probably come from countries that have not fostered self-evaluation in that sense that it is fostered in or asked for in America and Europe, or Germany, Europe. So it needs to be practiced too before you can, do it a few times before you do an actual self-reflection or self-evaluation. And the fourth point, self-assessment. Talking about this topic right now. Self-assessment is one step towards taking greater responsibility for learning. It is a process rather than a result. Teachers have to be careful about wording, so the test will not be about reading comprehension rather than speaking assessment. Each statement should be expressed in the first person. For example, I am able to, stuff like that. Like the can-do statements. I can do this, do that. In order to take the learner's perspective from the onset. So make it clear, make it easy understandable, not great paragraphs for graduate students. And another slide number 10. I just want to talk shortly about rating and scoring assessment tasks. Ranking and scoring are concerned with providing an evaluation of the student's speaking performance in the form of a grade or score. Task criteria need to relate closely to the tasks themselves. Likewise, assessment tasks should be closely related to the goals and objectives of the course. Of course, goals, objectives, tasks, everything has to be at one level and not taken from all over the place. So they should relate to each other. Just to make it easier for the students to understand, but also to make it easier for the teachers to manage and to manage the whole course. When teachers look for tasks that are purposeful for addressing students, they can use the criteria of Richards that he developed in 1983 to evaluate the tasks. So Richards has developed developed a criteria that helps the teachers to evaluate the tasks. So first of them being content validity. Does the assessment measure speaking or something else? So we want to make sure that it is about speaking when we say it is about speaking. Have activities been used as part of instruction? It is always good to use activities for assessment that have been used before in a class situation. Second, task validity. Does the task assess speaking, or does memory play a significant role? Yeah, it's almost like the same. Does the task relate to what we have learned in class? Purposefulness and transferability. Does the assessment task reflect a purpose for speaking in real life? It's always good to have in ESL classes to have a real life context, to have real life situations, because it's closer for the students to relate to and better to relate to, especially since they are struggling with many of these areas when they come here. Fourth, authenticity. To what degree does the assessment measure actual spoken language? So, do the students repeat? Do the students copy? Or do the students really produce language? Okay, this was my presentation. We have covered half an hour of presentation, and we have done 2 activities in the meantime, one of which counting for 10 minutes of time and the other for 5 to 6 minutes, 7 maybe, of time. And in concluding words, this was about speaking assessment. Thank you very much.